Thank you, Mr. President. I move that that the position of the Senate President pro tempore be declared vacant.
Any objection? Senator Dillon?
I will not interpret Senator Pacquiao, Mr. President. I second the motion.
Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved. We proceed. There's no objection, so the motion is approved. Majority Leader?
We have a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.
Paki-ready out ka lang.
Session is resumed.
Senator Pacquiao would like to be recognized, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Mr. President, I nominate Senator Ralph Recto to the position of Senate President pro tempore.
Any other nominations? The nomination has been seconded by Senator Escudero. Shall we close the nomination process, Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we close the period of the nomination
Mag-raise
period.
yung hands pa rin, ano? Okay, for the record, since we need to achieve a certain number of votes, we will have to vote on the motion by the raising of hands, and your votes will be recorded. So those who are voting for Senator Recto as the new Senate President pro tempore, please raise your hand. Did we get it? Yeah, I don't need. Give me the result, please. Yes. No, it's a number. We only need to announce the number of votes. With 17 votes for Senator Recto as the new Senate President pro tempore, he is hereby elected as the Senate President pro tempore. Can we call Senator Recto to take his oath of office? Up here. Raise your right hand and state your oath of office. I, state your name.
I, Ralph Recto,
Having been elected Senate President pro tempore,
having been elected Senate President pro tempore,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly
that
swear
I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all other I may hereafter hold
and of all other I may hereafter hold
under the Republic of the
under
Philippines.
the Republic of the Philippines.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws and legal orders
that I will obey the laws and legal orders,
and decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities,
and maintain true faith and allegiance
and maintain true faith and allegiance
to the Republic of the
to
Philippines,
the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation upon myself
and that I impose this obligation upon myself
voluntarily,
Voluntarily.
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of
So
evasion.
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Mr. President, I move to that the chairmanship and members of the Committee on Health be declared vacant, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. Senator Antiveros.
I second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we elect Senator J.B. Ejercito as Chairman of the Committee on Health.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Ejercito is the new chairman of the Committee on Health.
Mr. President, I move that we recognize Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Mr. President, I move that the chairmanship and members of the Committee on Agriculture be declared vacant, Mr.
Any
President.
objection? There being none, motion is approved. Senator Pangilinan.
We would like to place on record that, well, prior to the approval of the motion, we would have seconded the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I move that we elect Senator Cynthia Villar as Chairman of the Committee on Agriculture.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Villar is now the new chairman of the Committee on Agriculture.
Mr. President, I move to recognize Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Mr. President, I move that the chairmanship and members of the Committee on Education be declared vacant.
Any objection? Senator Aquino. Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
Thank you. Senator Poe.
I would just like to put on record, Mr. President, just a manifestation that I think that Senator Bam did an excellent job as chairman of the Committee on Education, and I hope that whoever will be voted in his place will continue the initiatives that he has started. Thank you, Mr. President.
That will not be treated as an objection. So, there being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move that we elect Senator Chis Escudero as Chairman of the Committee on Education.
Any objection? There being none, Senator Escudero is now the new chairman of the Committee on Education. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Any objection? Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, thank you for allowing me a few minutes of your time. Alam mo, Mr. President, lahat naman tayo dito mga politiko. Lahat naman tayo dito mga big boys and big girls. And I take no offense to this removal of my chairmanship in education. But for the record, Mr. President, I would just like to state for the record, and I hope no one will object, that this move, Mr. President, has nothing to do with the performance of the Committee on Education. Two of the priority bills that we have filed and are currently discussing and hopefully will pass before the end of March, yung Pagkain Pinoy para sa Batang Pinoy Bill, and of course our Free Higher Education Act, Mr. President, has gone through numerous hearings, has gone through numerous consultations. We've put the time into these bills, Mr. President, and we will support Senator Escudero when he finalizes these bills and hopefully gets a second and third reading, Mr. President, here on the Senate floor. Mr. President, never in my 4 years as a senator have I seen support for this bill, support as much for these two bills. Mr. President, yung Free Education Act, I think there were already 11 or 12 co-sponsors. There were a number of co-authors. Yung Pagkain Pinoy, Mr. President, also had a similar number of support from our colleagues. So for the record, Mr. President, let me just say that it was a pleasure being your Committee on Education Chairman. And Mr. President, if this is the price to pay to show up on the streets of EDSA, talking about democracy, talking about the issues of violence on our streets, if this is the price to pay, Mr. President, I gladly pay that price. Maraming salamat, Mr. President.
Thank you for the manifestation. Let's go to the pending motion that we proceed with the reference of business. Any objection? Senator Pangilinan.
Just a clarification, Mr. President, before we proceed, we act on the motion. Considering that the former minority leader is now elected as Senate President pro tem, may we know who the minority leader, who will act as minority leader, Mr. President?
Senator Recto is recognized.
Just a manifestation and maybe to help answer the question. Mr. President, I accept the pro tem and I thank my colleagues, the majority of whom have voted me to the position of pro tem. Precisely knowing or finding out today what will happen, I thought it was best to accept the offer of the majority to be pro tem, to open up the position of minority leader to any of our colleagues who may be joining the minority. At this point in time, I suppose that the minority leader would be Senator Trillanes until the minority decides among themselves who would be the minority leader. Thank you.
Senator Pangilinan.
Mr. President, with that manifestation, I will place on record that I would like to associate myself with the members of the minority of this chamber.
Thank you. Senator Drilon.
I adopt the manifestation of Senator Pangilinan, and therefore it is proper at this stage that we rearrange the seats in the chamber.
Thank you. Who else? Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, likewise, I manifest that I will also be joining the minority.
Were you raising your hand, Senator Tiveros? Yes, sir. Senator Tiveros.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also proudly joined the minority of the Senate today. Salamat po.
Thank you. Senator Pangilinan. Yes.
I took a few moments, Mr. President, hoping that perhaps other members of the chamber would also associate themselves and join the minority, but it looks like that's it, Mr. President. Having said that, Mr. President, we may be allowed perhaps a day or so to sit down with our colleagues in the minority to discuss, if at all, a reorganization or the matter of the issue of who the minority leader will be. And as such, make the necessary manifestations at the proper time, at a later time, Mr. President.
Is there any objection to proceed with the reference of business as of this moment? Senator Drilon?
So, just to make the records clear, the members of the minority today will be Senator Trillanes, this representation, Senator Risa Hontiveros, Senator Bam Aquino, Senator Kiko Pangilinan. And of course, we speak also for and in behalf of Senator Laila De Lima as a member of the minority.
I think it's better to await formal communication from the good senator.
Yes, yes.
Regarding that matter, sir. Okay.
Yes.
But that's correct, sir. As of this moment, there will be 5 members of the minority.
Okay, we have no dispute with that, Mr. President.
What's the pleasure of Senator Pangilinan?
Yes, Mr. President, with the inclusion of at least, well, prior to the reorganization, Mr. President, there were 3 members of the minority. After the reorganization, Mr. President, there are now 5. This will therefore affect the entire proportionate representation in all the committees. May we know how we are to proceed, given the change in the proportionate representation of all committees, Mr. President?
Majority Leader? Yes. Can we answer that question later because we have a pending motion to proceed with the reference of business? Any objection? There being none, the motion is approved.